right, the time is 4 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you'd stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone, and we are videotaping this meeting, so welcome to everyone at home watching. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Present.
Village Clerk is present. Mayor Phelan?
Present. All right, we have everyone present for this hearing. I do have some prepared remarks I'd like to read into the record. I will now call to order this meeting of the Municipal Election Board of the Village of Peoria Heights. I note for the record that the following members of the Electoral Board have heeded the call and are present today: Stephanie Turner, Cheryl Carter, and I. The purpose of this meeting is to hold a hearing on the petition of Matthew Wigginton, hereinafter referred to as the objector, objecting to the nominating petitions for the office of village trustee filed by Nicholas Tajerna, hereinafter referred to as the candidate. I will hereafter refer to the petitions filed by the candidate as the nominating petition, and I will hereafter refer to the petitions filed by the objector as the objector's petition. The candidate and objector are both present today. Our objective is to be as informal as possible while at the same time making sure this electoral board receives all pertinent information and follows the requirements of Illinois election law. At this point in time, I believe it's appropriate to make preliminary comments for the record. The objectors, number one, the objector's petition was filed with the village clerk on Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. Two, the original nominating petition and the original objector's petition were formally received by me on Wednesday, December 30th, 2020. A copy of the objector's petition was transmitted to the candidate by personal delivery on December 30th, 2020. 4, a call to myself, Stephanie Turner, Cheryl Carter, Matthew Wigginton, and Nicholas Tajerna, pursuant to Section 1010 of the Election Code, was sent by certified mail, return receipt requested, on December 30th, 2020. 5, on December 30th, 2020, I further directed the Sheriff of Peoria County to serve the call upon myself, Stephanie Turner, Cheryl Carter, Matthew Wigginton, and Nicholas Tajerna, pursuant to the provisions of Section 1010 of the Illinois Code. The first order of business of this board is to adopt rules of procedure, drafts of which have been prepared and submitted to the members of the Electoral Board for review and consideration. At this time, I hereby move that the draft rules of procedure of the Electoral Board previously submitted be adopted. Council, do you want me to pause there and get a motion?
You made the motion, so you just need one of these two ladies.
I'd ask for a second then.
Second.
What did we get? Just this? Is that what you're talking about? Because I don't think I got.
To adopt the rules.
Your packet. It's in that package of material.
Okay, second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion to adopt the rules?
No, I mean, I don't know yet. I just now got it, so.
These, you take your time. I'm not trying to rush you. These are standard rules, and they would be the same as the rules that we had in place 2 years ago when we had, now it was a different type of electoral challenge, but we use the same rules in all the municipalities. And it's just an informal procedure, but anyway, we like to commit something to writing so that if there are any disputes about how we're proceeding, we can reference those rules.
Well, give me a second. Okay. I don't have any questions.
Are you ready for the question?
Yeah, go for it.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Village Clerk? Aye. Mayor Phelan?
Aye. Those are adopted. All right. This matter having passed, the rules of procedure of the selection board are hereby adopted. I'm furnishing a copy to the objector and candidate.
So I don't know that I have extra copies.
And that's been done, Mr. Counsel?
What's that?
That's been done?
It has not. Can
I
I,
will go get these copied.
thank you. That's the one thing I didn't make enough copies of. Oh, you know what, Stephanie, I do have it. My assistant was better than,
All right.
Hey Stephanie, he's good, Stephanie.
I got him, Stephanie.
You got it? Awesome.
Sorry about that.
Okay, the board will now proceed with hearings on the objection petition. First, the board will present its evidence and testimony. Then the objector and the candidate, in that order, will be provided an opportunity to present evidence in accordance with the rules of procedure. After all evidence has been presented, the objector and the candidate will each be given 5 minutes to make their closing arguments. Then, any member of the public present at the hearing will have the opportunity to make public comment. Note that public comment shall not be deemed as evidence in this matter, and the board need not consider such comments in its deliberations on the objection phase, or the objection petition. The presentation of the board's evidence. Our attorney will introduce into evidence as board exhibits the following documents subject to objection. Number one, the original nomination petition of Nicholas DeJerna filed with the village clerk on December 18, 2020 at 2:04 p.m. to be marked as board exhibit number 1. 2, the original objector's petition of Matthew Wigginton against Nicholas DeJerna filed with the village clerk on December 29, 2020 to be marked as board exhibit number 2. Number 3, a copy of the voter registration records for those signatures challenged in the objector's petitions, certified to be true and correct by the Executive Director of the Peoria County Election Commission, to be marked as Board Exhibit Number 3. Number 4, a copy of the signature pages from the nomination petitions filed by Jeffrey Gett, Matthew Wigginton, and Dave Marfell, to be marked as Board Exhibit Number 4. Number 5, acknowledgement of receipt of the original objector's petition and original nominating petition signed by me on December 30th, 2020 to be marked as Board Exhibit 5. Number 6, acknowledgement of receipt of a copy of the objector's petition signed by the candidate to be marked as Board Exhibit Number 6. Number 7, a call to myself, Stephanie Turner, Cheryl Carter, Matthew Wigginton, and Nicholas DeJerna, sent by certified mail return receipt requested on December 30th, 2020 to be marked as Board Exhibit Number 7. Number 8, certified mail return receipts for the call sent to the above named individuals to be marked as Board Exhibits Number 8.
And I'm going to jump in there because number 9, we didn't get a return from the sheriff. We had prepared this in anticipation that we would have that. But both the objector and the candidate are here in person, so service is not an issue. So we're going to go just with 1 through 8.
Okay. So then if there are no objections to the exhibits, they will be entered into the record. Are there any objections?
No.
All right, counsel, I turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just out of respect for his time, Mr. Bride from the Election Commission is here. We should swear in the witnesses, and so trying to see if we have the script for that. And as chair, you should probably be the one to swear them in. I think the script is right below where you were left off on that script.
You swear them in collectively or individually?
Collectively. So I would say, you're just going to read these. Swear. So I would need, Mr. Bride, you're going to testify. Mr. Wigginton, you might as well be sworn in. And then Mr. Tiarina, if you would stand. raise your right hand. And Sarah, I think you're going to testify maybe, so if you would not mind standing and raising your right hand as well.
Okay. Do you swear the testimony you will give in the proceedings shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, thank you all very much.
Very good, thanks. So, Mr. Bride, could you just, it'd be great if you don't mind to come to the podium. The reason is that is has a microphone,
Sure.
and I'll come down here closer to you. State your name and position for the record, please.
Thomas Bride, Executive Director of the Peoria County Election Commission.
Okay, and how long have you been involved in the election commission?
5 years for the County Election Commission, 10 years before that for City Election Commission.
Okay. And as part of this objection, you received the objection that was filed, is that correct?
I received I received a copy of the actual signatures that had been challenged, not the whole objection, but a list of the signatures that were challenged.
And I want to hand you what is marked as Exhibit 3.
Yes.
Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, this is the top sheet is an analysis of voter registration that I performed.
Okay, so the first page on Exhibit 3 is your analysis?
Yes.
Of the signatures?
Yes.
Could you just go through and this is Mr. Tiarina's petitions, and it goes by page and signature number as presented in the objection filed by Mr. Wigginton, just so everybody can follow along. So if you would, just briefly go through those.
Sure. So the challenge was sheet 1, number 3. I did an analysis. There was no bulk, B-A-L-K, dash, with the first letter T, or a B-A-L with a T registered in Peoria Heights. And then I had looked at the voters registered at the address listed and found that there was nobody. That one was not registered. There's no T-ball or T-bulk. The signature was a little squibby, so I did a broad range. The next one was sheet 3, number 6. I found that they were not registered at this address. They were registered in the city of Peoria. I checked the registration of the name listed, but also who's registered at that address listed. So sheet 3, number 8, was not registered at this address. It was also registered in the city of Peoria. And I didn't find anyone registered at 1019 East Rouse. Sheet 4, that were not registered. I didn't find them registered at all, and then I attached a list of the voters at that address listed. Sheet 4, number 3 was the same, not registered, and I attached a list of the voters that were registered at that address. Sheet 4, number 4, was not registered, and there's no one registered at 1335 East Peoria. Sheet 4, number 6, was a valid registration at that address.
Okay.
And then sheet 4, number 8, was not applicable. This was multiple signatures on petitions, and I didn't have the other petitions to evaluate that.
Fair enough. First of all, how did, were you able to determine the number of required signatures for nominating petitions for the petition of trustee of the village board for Peoria Heights?
So I was asked, I supplied some information to the city, I believe the city clerk, sometime in September. It's basically the local election officials manual that's prepared by the State Board of Elections. And then I believe a calendar too. I was asked for the number of registered voters. Signatures required. I did an analysis based on independent candidates filing for city council or village board. It's not interchangeable, but for village, and that number is based on the number of registered voters in the last election in the city of Peoria that somebody was elected at the district. In this case, my understanding is the village, everybody's elected citywide or village-wide. So I looked at the 2019 election, and there were 621 votes cast in the 2019 election. And for independent, it's 5% to 8% or 5% and to 8%. Let me rephrase this. At least 5%, up to 8%, but at least 50 different. So that's the number that I had sent to the city clerk, who I sent to Sarah Wybach, stating that it was a minimum of 32 and a maximum of 82 signatures required.
Okay, so 32 would be the minimum number?
Yes, and
Okay.
82 would be the maximum number.
Okay.
For an independent candidate, yes.
Okay. Do either of the candidate or the objector, I'll start with the objector. Do you have any questions for Mr. Bride?
I do, yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Mr. Bryan, thank you.
If I may stop you there, could we get the objectors to use a microphone, just so everybody at home can hear you too, please, Mr. Wigginton?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bride, for coming. I have just one question on the things that you prepared. On the document marked as Exhibit 3, the analysis of voter registration in Peoria County Election Commission, you said on page 1, sheet 4, number 6, registered as address as valid. Now, you also provided the certification on the last page of this document. And in your voter information, you have this signer. Their voter registration states at the address 1426 East Samuel Avenue in your voter registration document. Now, when we compare that to Exhibit 1, the sheet 4 in the signing petitions, this signer wrote 1430 East Samuel Avenue. So, is this signer registered to vote at 1430 Samuel Avenue or 1426 Samuel Avenue?
They're registered at 1426.
So when they wrote 1430,
I'll be real honest. I looked at the printed out and then the name. I don't know that I checked the address because it was close. That's an oversight on my part.
no problem, Mr. Bride, thank you.
But no, they're registered at the person is registered at 1426.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bride. So, I'm sorry, would you like to would you make any corrections to the?
Yeah, that would state that the person is a registered voter, but not at that address.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bride.
And
Mr.
then
Walton?
just briefly, it's a requirement, it's your understanding that the voter be registered at the address that they subscribe on the nominating petition, is that correct?
Yeah, they're required to state their name, sign, and the address that they're registered to vote at.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And thank you, Mr. Bride, thank you, Mr. Walton, no further questions.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, would Katie Kim, the one person in question, would she be qualified to vote for this election?
Yeah, she's registered in Peoria Heights. She would be qualified voter, yes.
Okay. And what date did you compare the signatures to the registered voter?
I believe last Wednesday.
Okay.
It was either Wednesday, whatever date was, I got it. So it was either Wednesday or, I believe it was last Wednesday.
And if you look at the first page on Exhibit 3 here,
Is there a date on there? Yeah, 12/30 is the date I did it.
is that,
Yes.
okay, I want to make sure everybody has a fair opportunity. Do any of the electoral board members, mayor, clerk, or trustee Carter, have any questions for Mr. Bride?
So, I do have a question. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
1426, 1430, you live at the end corner. Do we know what that end corner house is? They don't know. 1426. Katie Kim. So if they still live in the Heights, can we still count it or no? I mean,
That's
the
a-
house difference is like 4 house differences. It's probably 1 house down or 2
That's a
houses
legal
down.
question.
Huh?
That's really just a legal question. They need to be a registered voter, and I'm really just qualified to tell you where they're registered to vote at.
Okay, so, for instance, the one that really is disputing is Katie Kim. It's 1426 versus 1430, if I'm reading this correct, right? Matt, is that what you're disputing, is the 1426 versus the 1430, right? So, I'm asking, she's registered to vote in the Heights, so how far down does it go legally? Does it go down to the house number or not?
Yeah, you're registered by, a registration includes a valid address, not just to the house number, but if you actually moved apartments in the same address, you would be required to re-register.
To re-register, okay.
Your voter registration is tied to an address, a specific address.
Right, okay. Well, okay, so since the address, house numbers is actually wrong, so that would knock those two off, right? Wouldn't
But-
it just Katie Kim, it would also be Charles also.
By statute, the address has to be correct.
So it'd be knock these two off, along with the others that he knocked off here that are not registered.
Correct.
So he needs 32, so now that drops him down to 30. Right?
I think you're right, yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I did have, what was the, oh, you're just saying that it's that one. Registered at a valid address, sheet 4. Oh, I see what yours. Okay, never mind, no, I see what you're doing. No, I don't have.
Madam
any.
Clerk, any questions?
Yeah, we have 30, right? Is that what we're all counting? And you're saying that we have to have at least 32.
Based on the calculation from the 2019 election, a minimum of 32 to 82.
I don't have any other questions.
Can I state something?
Yeah, go ahead. Just in order to make it part of the record, we need you at the microphone. And Mr. Tiarena, just so you know, you will have an opportunity to present argument based on
Okay.
the evidence that's put in. So just,
Is that-
we just want Mr. Bride's time respected. So if you have questions for
Okay, gotcha,
him.
yeah, I'm sorry, I could.
No, that's okay. That's okay. This is an informal proceeding, but
Okay.
he's volunteered his time to come over here from the county, so.
Definitely. I just wanted to state, that, there was, a citizen, I got their signature, Sarah DeVore, and she was not, pointed out or objected, so it should be 31, I believe. 31 signatures that are valid.
Okay, and you'll have an opportunity to address that issue once we're done with testimony.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bride
Go ahead, counsel.
so that we can excuse him? thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time to.
Thank you, Mr. Bride.
Busy time of year,
Thank you.
so. The only other witness that we have that I think has, other than the objector and the candidate themselves, that has pertinent information would be Sarah DeVore. That's one of the challenged signatures. Would you mind stepping up to the microphone? And just, Mr. Bride, just so you know, you're free to leave. You're welcome to stay and watch, but your testimony is done, so thank you. Can you state your name? I think everybody knows you.
My name is Sarah DeVore.
Okay. And you signed Mr. Tiarina's nominating petitions for Board of Trustees, correct?
I did.
And do you remember when you signed it?
I don't know the dates I signed any of the petitions. I do remember the order in which I signed them in. However, I would like to point out that I specifically asked every single candidate how many petitions I could sign prior to signing them. I also referred to Trustee Weisenberg, since we ran in the last election, asking how many petitions. No one gave me an answer on how many petitions could be signed. I don't feel that information is very readily available to the candidate or to the people signing it. Had I known that I could only sign 3, the signatures I would have signed in the order would be different than how I signed them.
Fair enough. I'm not sure you answered the question about which, in what order did you sign them? And I don't need to know anything other than if Mr. Tiarina's was the first or the last.
It was the last.
Okay. And are you clear on that, or is it, yeah, I mean, you know?
I know that I signed it last. However, I would have signed it first or second had I known that I could only sign in the order that I could sign in.
Fair enough. I think we're going with Mr. Wigginton for questions first. Any questions for Trustee DeVore? No questions. And then Mr. Tiarina, any questions? Okay, thank you. I didn't ask if you had any questions for Sarah. Did anybody else have any questions for Trustee DeVore?
No.
Okay. I don't have any more evidence that I want to present, so I would turn it over. I think it's appropriate. There's no hard and fast rule, but I think the objector probably would go first. We went a little out of order because I wanted to respect Mr. Bride's time, but I think we're going to go ahead with the objector first, and then we'll allow Mr. Tiarina to respond. So, Mr. Wigginton, if you would, please. Thank you. And the only caveat I would say, if you want to call a witness who hasn't previously testified, we would want to swear them in.
And we're not going to have to worry about that, Mark, so thanks. So I would like to first address this board and start off by saying it brings me really no pleasure to be here today. I have worked with Mr. Tiarina, Nico, on the zoning board for the last, better part of 2 years. I respect what his beliefs are. In fact, he and I commonly end up on the same side of the issues. However, with the election code, there really isn't a variance like the zoning board. This is a code-based regulations. I'm an attorney by practice, and as an attorney, I practice a code-based law myself, and so I know with what I do for a living, there is a regulation on the Code of Federal Regulations for every move that I make. And with the elections code, come to find out, just like Sarah found out, there seems to be a regulation about everything you do in elections, including signing only 3 petitions for 3 available positions available. And so I will be candid with you. I came here to this building and looked over everyone's petitions, including myself. And it was Nico, and again, you talk about people that, you would, if you could pick and choose who it was, but it was Nico who I found that was deficient. And it was deficient in a number of areas. And one, we just had simply people that weren't registered to vote here in Peoria Heights. And two, we had people, like Mr. Bride stated, that weren't registered to vote in the place they affixed their name to. When we all came here to pick up our petitions, we were given a packet. And in that packet, on either page 18 and 19 in bold letters, it stated the regulation about addresses and how a signer must sign opposite his or her name at the place they are registered. That was in bold. And so here, and that's 10 ILCS 53-1.2. You know, if you have it memorized, I don't, but you Google it and that's what it says. You have to sign opposite the address you are registered with the Elections Commission. And on that one that I challenged, the person is simply not registered there. The other name that I challenged is Stephanie DeVore, who testified earlier. And she, as a good citizen, signed all of our petitions. And I appreciate her signature on mine. I know all of us do, for her support. However, when you sign that fourth one for 3 available positions, it's no longer a valid signature. So under numerous tests, and I appreciate Mr. Walton's questioning, whether at the physical time and place of the signature or at the time of turning in the signatures and having them filed here, Mr. Tiarina fails on both accounts as the last to file. So again, I reiterate, it brings me no pleasure to be here. I reached out to Nico personally when I did this so that he would hear it from me rather than hearing it from a deputy sheriff serving him papers. I wanted him to hear it from me. I wrestled with this a long time, and I sought counsel from a lot of people on whether I should do this. Again, it brings me no pleasure. But the facts remain that Mr. Tiarina is short signature. So thank you very much.
Take your time, but it is your turn, Mr. Tiarina. I don't want to rush you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to first say thank you to this board for being here. Although this entire situation is extremely disappointing, I truly appreciate your time and will try to keep the remarks as brief as possible. If you ask anyone who has ever run for public office what the worst part of the process was, they will tell you without hesitation that it was petitioning. Petitioning is an uncomfortable, antiquated process that has been made even more difficult in the midst of a global pandemic. Not only do you seek out citizens who may or may not be registered to vote to ask them for the same information you'd ask for if attempting to steal their identity, you also have the burden of explaining to potential voters that the village trustee is not Republican or Democrat, which blows most of their minds considering the narrative coming from their televisions. But all that aside, The biggest issue is that the petitioning process does nothing to make our election process better. The village of Peoria Heights isn't safer or more prosperous because of it. And the original intent of the law to prevent voter confusion is not fulfilled in any way. If anything, the process leaves our voters and potential candidates even more in the dark and allows those with the knowledge or access to an attorney to weaponize the process. It has become a tactic to limit the participation in the political process and silence opposition. I believe that the smallest, softest voice can carry the biggest solution to our problems. All of my potential opponents have a unique world experience that can provide this village with unique solutions and ideas. I am no different. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I've served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I have 16 years of experience in DoD financial management. I am involved in nonprofits in the community, and I have served on the zoning board for the past few years. I also am a member of the fastest growing demographic in this country. My father is a first-generation immigrant from Mexico. I am equipped to bring that life experience to the table. My point is that rather than limiting voices, we need all voices at the table. If the voters of Peoria Heights choose not to elect me, I'm absolutely okay with that. But to use the process to avoid an honest discussion and exchange of ideas is not only un-American, it's just very shameful. But at the end of the day, there's a process that is governed by the Illinois Election Code. The Illinois Election Code sets the required signatures, and based on that criteria, I needed the signatures of 32 registered voters. Could I take this off? I can't really, sorry. My objector has claimed that I have 30 legitimate signatures and has contested 8 of the 38 submitted. I will present to you today the voter registration of 2 of the signers who he has contested. These individuals are registered voters and will be eligible to vote in April's election. I would ask the board today to adhere to the intent of the election code. The intent is not to prevent individuals from running for office or to pass a test. The intent is to prevent voter confusion. I have 32 legitimate signatures of eligible registered voters. And I should be able to be placed on the ballot. My candidacy will not confuse voters. It will offer them a unique voice to represent them at Village Hall. Thank you for your time. And I'd also like to just submit, I have 2 of the people that signed my petitions. They have actually registered to vote, and I have evidence proving that. Let's see. If I could just, page 4, line 3, and then page 4, line 4.
Okay.
Here's their registration.
This is the election code.
Okay.
Ask them, but there's no date.
Okay.
Okay, we're receiving those as exhibits. We just need to make some copies.
Okay.
So, yeah, please proceed. while-
Okay, yeah. I just also state that there's no specific date that says in the election code when they need to be registered by. I just highlighted a few things here in the election code. It says, such petition shall be signed by qualified primary electors residing in the political division for which the nomination is sought in their own proper persons, only opposite the signature of each signer. Let's see, where is that? And also, at the end of the day, I've met the signature requirements with those two pieces of evidence I just presented. The intent of the election law was not to prevent participation. The State Board of Elections has a long-standing history of deciding on the side of ballot access in the situation open to interpretation. So that's really all I have to say.
Could I ask, is it your contention, because I'm just seeing this stuff and he's copying it for
Yeah.
the first time, but those two signatures that
Yes.
you got, that you're providing evidence on, did they register to vote recently?
Yes, after, that's why I asked him when he ran those
Okay, and
to verify.
do you know what date they registered on? Is it on the documents?
I have just, like phone text message
Okay.
conversations on when that happened.
Well, I'll see what those documents say. I had to give them to Chief Sutton to make
Okay.
copies, so we'll look
Yeah.
at them. I wasn't sure if you knew when they registered.
I know that Taylor Wallerstead, I believe she was on page 4, line 4, she registered on Saturday. And then Jake Lockwood.
Saturday, just this past Saturday,
Correct.
January 1?
Yes.
Okay, and
And
the
then
other guy?
Jake Lockwood registered, I believe, last Thursday or Wednesday.
30th or 31st?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just trying to see why there might be a discrepancy, and it seems like...
Yeah, that's why I asked him, because it was after, they registered after he
Yeah,
ran
if he
his-
ran that on the morning of the 30th and they registered later in the day, they could have registered on the 30th, but he wouldn't have picked it up.
Right,
And
exactly.
if I remember right, he was exchanging emails with us in the morning, so that could account for the
Okay.
discrepancy.
So can I ask a question right
Of course.
So when you sign this petition, you have to be a registered voter when you sign this, not afterwards, right? Or does it mean that just as long as
Yes, you do need to be a registered voter when you sign.
when you sign the petition,
Correct.
not afterwards? Okay, so,
Okay. I just wanted to challenge the board to actually see where it's stated where it needs to be, that you need to be a registered voter in the election code, because I don't see, as far as the time frame is concerned, because I don't see anything specific to that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but we spent some time looking at this, and it's nothing specific that states they need to be the whole thing. We pulled up some of the election code here. Such petition shall be signed by qualified primary electors residing in the political division for which the nomination is sought in their own proper persons, only and opposite the signature of each signer. So, to me, I don't see where it states specifically. I mean, the election is in April, and as of today, they're registered voters. So.
okay, so I guess I'm just gonna intervene here and ask questions.
Please do.
Okay, so my question again is, legally, I'm asking you, Mark, if they have to be a registered voter by the time that they sign this, not by the time the election. If they sign this piece of paper it's stating that they are a registered voter at that address, right?
That is correct, and the statute says that in order to sign one of these petitions for any candidate, for any office, it could be mayor
Right.
or any other position, it's not specific to trustees, but for
Right,
anyone.
Not to Nick, no, I'm just
Right.
saying, in general,
But in order to be a valid signer, you have to be a registered voter. So you can't cure that by registering after you sign.
right, okay. So that's,
At the time that they signed that, if they weren't registered, then they weren't a valid signature at that time.
okay,
They can sign in the future, but that would be past the deadline, so we would, yeah.
right.
Just real quick, can you cite that in Illinois election code?
There's reference to qualified voters as signatories in the election code. It's 10 ILCS 5/10-3.
Counsel, at this time, do we want to let the objector rebut, or?
Please.
And thank you, and I'm happy to hear that they are registered voters. However, the Illinois Elections Code, and the citation is 10 ILCS 5-3-1.2, and the title is Eligibility to Sign a Petition. For the purposes of determining eligibility to sign a nominating petition or a petition proposing a public question, the terms voter, registered voter, qualified voter, legal voter, elector, qualified elector, primary elector, and qualified primary elector, as used in the code or another statute, shall mean a person who is registered to vote at the address shown opposite his signature on the petition or was registered to vote at such address when he signed the petition. Any person otherwise qualified under this section who has moved as another residence but whose address was changed as a result of the implementation of 911 emergency. So that's your citation. And unfortunately for those two signatures, while I'm happy to hear that they've registered to vote subsequently, they were not registered to vote at the time that the signature was placed on the petition.
All right, Counsel, I guess we're...
I think it's time for public comment.
All right, so public comment is open. If you'd like to make a comment, please come forward, give your name and address, and try and keep it to 5 minutes or less.
Well, hello, people. My name is Donnie Henry. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Peoria County. I actually do reside in Peoria at 316 Southwest Washington Street, apartment 601. And I probably, before Tom Bride left, dealing with third-party ballot access issues, I probably have the most experience in the room dealing with these types of objections. And like Mr. Tijerina said earlier, this has become a situation where people that have knowledge or are lawyers or have access to an attorney weaponize the system. And long-standing intent of the Board of Elections, and this is in case study, if you look at actual situations that have happened on the State Board of Elections, they have sided with ballot access when there's any sort of way to move the person towards being on the ballot. So I would ask this board, you have the power to place Mr. Tijerina on the ballot. You have that discretion. I would ask you to use that. The intent of the election law is to prevent voter confusion. There is no voter confusion with Mr. Tijerina. He is a known entity in this village. He is a good man. He has a storied history. He is a veteran. He's a minority. He has so many things going for him that he should be able to express his ideas. Anyone trying to take him off, they can say that they take no pleasure in it, but it's them trying to avoid debate and sharing of ideas. And we should have more ideas in all of our communities around here. And so I would ask you to use your discretion to place Mr. Tijerina on the ballot. You can do that. He does have 32 now registered voters. So use that interpretation, place him on the ballot, and then we can have a share of ideas and make the village of Peoria Heights a better place to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Sure.
Brandon Weisenberg, 335 East Francis Avenue. The only thing I'd like to add is he has registered voters in the village of Peoria Heights. These are citizens. One of them is Katie Kim. We know Katie Kim is a citizen of Peoria Heights. So to remove her signature from his ballot, just because she typoed her address, who knows, she might even own that property. But I think it would be prudent of the board to place him on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Okay.
Hello, Board. Andrea Huprich, 721 East Scioto. I just want to speak on Nico's behalf, and something that he has not shared is that he spent 10 to 12 hours knocking on doors, trying to get signatures. He went out there and he did this on his own merit, and he wanted to get on the ballot on his own. He knows many people in the community. I'm active in the community. I've known him for 10 years. He knows several other people here that could have more than helped him get all the signatures that he needed. And when we offered, he turned that down because he wanted to go out and get those signatures on his own. He wanted to just be on the ballot on his own. And I think that shows great character for somebody in wanting to run. And I think that should be taken in consideration too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there any public comment? Any other public comment? For the third and last time, any public comment? Public comments closed. Council?
Now that public comment is closed, I think it's appropriate for brief closing arguments from both parties, and then we'll deliberate on the contention. So I think we'll go first with Mr. Wigginton. Do you have anything that you'd like to add in the way of just a closing remark?
Just real quickly, and I'm sorry, but yeah, my hesitation in doing this is legitimate. I agree with the public comments. Nico is a real asset to this community. He's been really nice to have as a colleague on the zoning board. That being said, we have to, when the code says shall, when the code says, and yeah, I'm a lawyer by trade, but I know how to read regulations as well. And when it says boldly on our candidate packet what we have to follow, I did. And I think the other candidates did. In fact, I know they did when I reviewed their documents. So it brings me no pleasure, again, to do this, but my apologies to Nico, and I hope that we still was able to share his ideas with the whole village. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tiarino, your closing remarks.
Yeah, I just wanted to simply state, I just want to do good for this community, and that's why I decided to run. That's why I decided to knock, me and my buddy here, Donnie, we decided to knock on doors when people were watching football games, when there's a COVID-19 going on, nobody wants to answer the door, but we marched on, we did what we had to do, we filled 4 pages out of, signatures, and it really sucks that, technicalities can ruin, a different choice, a different option for this village. And I think that's kind of sad. So I hope that you, rule in my favor. And the only people you're really hurting are the citizens of this village. Another voice, so thank you.
Thank you. I think that closes the proceedings, so we need to go through the findings that we're going to make, and we'll, to aid that discussion, I've got proposed findings where we say yes or no to the.
We still going to ask questions? Or are we done?
Sorry. it would be up to the chair if you have another question that you wanted to ask, if he was willing to reopen.
Are you going to read all the findings, council, or?
I will read the findings. Trustee Carter saying that she had another question.
I just saying, how many votes does he legally have? I just want to know the number.
Well, we're going to go through, we haven't deliberated yet. We're going to go
Okay.
through vote by vote, or I'm sorry, signature by signature. These aren't votes, they're signature by signature on the contested signatures. So we'll discuss each one on its own merits because there are different issues.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and, with the permission of the chair, and go through the findings. Okay. The Municipal Electoral Board of the Village of Peoria Heights, Peoria County, Illinois, which we're going to refer to as the Electoral Board, finds as follows with respect to the above captioned matter. A, Nicholas T. Arena, the respondent candidate, filed nominating petition for the purpose of seeking to appear on the ballot as a candidate for the election to the Board of Trustees of the Village of Peoria Heights during the April 6, 2021 consolidated general election. I don't think there's any dispute over that statement. B, Matthew Wigginton, the petitioner objector, filed a verified objection to the nominating petition, which objection is hereafter particularly addressed. I don't think there's any dispute that that happened. C, Michael Phelan, chair of the Electoral Board, called a meeting of the Electoral Board to occur at 4 p.m. January 4, 2021 at the Peoria Heights Village Hall, 4901 North Prospect Road, Peoria Heights, Illinois, for the purpose of hearing and passing on the objection. Notice of the hearing of the objection was served on the petitioner objector and the respondent candidate in the manner prescribed by law. The petitioner objector and the respondent candidate both appeared and participated at the hearing on the objection. I don't think anybody disputes that. The petitioner objector presented or had an opportunity to present evidence and argument in support of his objection. The respondent candidate presented or had an opportunity to present evidence and argument in support of his nominating petition. The Electoral Board has considered all of the evidence and arguments submitted during the hearing on the objection to the nominating petition. Now we're going to get into the particular signatures, and this form is set up to where we're going to say yes or no to each challenge signature. First, and this is paragraph I, with respect to the objection to the signature of T. Balk on sheet 1, line 3 of the nominating petition, alleging that the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the Electoral Board either sustains, in other words, you find that that's a valid objection, or overrules, which means you find that it's not a valid objection. And I would refer to Exhibit 3 if you have it. That's Mr. Bride, who testified, and he explained that there was no Balk or BAL registered at that address. He printed out a list of the parties that were registered, and none of those names is close. Anybody, I think it's appropriate to discuss each signature. Does anybody believe that that's a valid signature? Okay, so does everybody agree? I think we don't need to do roll call, but does everybody agree that that's not a valid signature?
I believe we're going to agree unless someone expresses otherwise.
Okay.
Is that okay to proceed?
That's fine. Trustee Carter seems to be reading. Are you that first signature?
Right, so that T. Ball or Balk, whatever the last name is not registered at that address.
Correct.
Because he printed this off.
Correct.
Right, I agree.
Okay. The next signature, we're on page 2 of the findings now. With J, with respect to the objection to the signature of Amber Arrowwood on sheet 3, line 6. Of the petition, alleging the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the Electoral Board either sustains or overrules the objection. So would you agree with the assessment of Tom Bride that the person who signed sheet 3, line 6 is not registered in the Village of Peoria Heights? Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
They're in fact registered in Peoria. Okay. Paragraph K, with respect to the objection to the signature of Summer Hogan on sheet 3, line 8 of the petition, alleging the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the electoral board sustains or overrules. And just to refresh, sheet 3, line 8, that voter was also registered in the city of Peoria, not the Village of Peoria Heights. And there's no one registered at that address, according to the election commission records. Does everybody agree that's an invalid signature?
Yeah.
Okay. Paragraph L, with respect to the objection to the signature of Kayla Donarski on sheet 4, line 1 of the petition, alleging the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the electoral board sustains or overrules the objection. And Mr. Bride attached a list of everybody that was registered at that address, and that name is not included on the list. So would everybody agree that's not a valid signature?
Agreed.
Yes.
Paragraph M, with respect to the objection to the signature of Taylor Wallerstedt on sheet 4, line 3 of the petition, alleging the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the electoral board sustains or overrules the objection. And this is and again, Mr. Bride attached a list of the voters registered at that address, and that name is not included on the list. So does the board agree that that is not a valid signature?
Agreed.
Paragraph N, with respect to the objection to the...
I'm sorry. If I say agree, can I make a comment?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so for the Taylor, I agree that it does not match what they, at the time of December 30th, but now that's the one that's currently a registered voter.
Correct.
Just want to make sure that's clear, even though it's not a valid as far as this petition goes.
I think we agree she was not registered to vote
At
on the
that time.
date that she signed the petition.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
Paragraph N, with respect to the objection to the signature of Jacob Lockwood on sheet 4, line 4 of the petition, alleging the signer is not a registered voter in the Village of Peoria Heights, the electoral board sustains or overrules the objection. And this one,
We don't have a printout on that? Talking about Lockwood, right?
yeah, I don't see that he printed out a sheet, but he did testify there was no one registered at that address. And I think this might be the other.
This is the other one that registered after the fact.
So we do know that he in fact registered, but he registered after signing.
Okay.
So in other words, the election commission records were accurate on the day they were run, but he registered to vote after he signed. So going back to N, which is sheet 4, line 4, Jacob Lockwood, do you sustain that that's an invalid signature or overrule?
Sustain.
Sustain?
Yeah.
Everyone? Okay. Paragraph O, with respect to the objection to the signature of Katie Kim on sheet 4, line 6 of the petition alleging the signer is not registered at the address listed on the petition, the electoral board sustains or overrules the objection.
See, this is the part that I have a problem with, is because Katie Kim, okay, we're gonna say, no, I agree that it's not right, but her husband isn't right either, and they didn't mention that one.
Just so you know, the electoral board, when you're considering signatures on nominating petitions, you can consider issues that weren't raised by the objector. The goal here is to determine, are there valid signatures, and are there enough valid signatures? So if you see other signatures that are known to be invalid, you can invalidate those. I'm not suggesting that you do that, and the finding form that was pre-printed didn't include that, but I think that was a valid point, that if we know that Charles Kim and Katie Kim are married, and they both live at the same address, so they both got the address wrong, but we're only here dealing with Katie Kim's signature.
So we're not gonna count her, but we're gonna count his. That's not.
We don't have to, is my point. I don't get a vote. It's up to the board. You can strike both Katie and Charles. That would be the consistent thing to do.
Well, I hate to do that to Nick, but this, with all the stuff going on right now, this is not legit. And I'm not gonna vote for that. I mean, it needs to be not counted, because it's not right. They don't even know their address. I don't know anybody else's opinion, but that's my opinion. Both of them shouldn't be counted.
Well, I think it's a good point. However, I personally would be reluctant to strike anyone not knowing from the election commission themselves. Did Mr. Bride state one way?
He did not state one way or the other.
So,
And we don't have that record because it wasn't part of the objection.
I think, Trustee Carter, that's a great catch, but I'm making my decision based on what the chairman of the Peoria County Election Commission testified, but if you have any specific knowledge, I think you should act on that then.
So we are sustaining paragraph O with Katie Kim. We're not going to go beyond that to Charles Kim. I don't hear, okay. That leads us to the last one, paragraph P. With respect to the objection to the signature of Sarah DeVore, sheet 4, line 8 of the petition, alleging the signer signed 3 prior nominating petitions for the same office, the electoral board sustains or overrules the objection. The statute says, and again, this is 10 ILCS 5/10-3. Toward the end of the first lengthy paragraph, it says, each voter may subscribe to 1 nomination for each office to be filled and no more. There's no law that we were able to find that clarifies, is the office of trustee a single office, or is it 3 offices because there's 3 vacant positions? But I don't think we need to answer that question because Sarah was clear that Mr. Tiarina's nominating petitions were the last one that she signed. There's also, this is just to aid in your decision, from the attorney's seat, there's no clear law as to whether, if the office was clerk or mayor where there's only one off, if you, are all of the signatures invalid if you sign too many, or is it just the one that goes beyond? So if you signed 2 people's petitions for the candidacy of mayor, we didn't have that this time, or clerk, is it both of them are invalid or just the second one in time? And there's no real clear law on that. My opinion as an attorney is that both signatures would be invalid. So in the case of Sarah DeVore, all 4 signatures would be invalid. But again, I don't think we get to that question because clearly she testified clearly in the dates on, and you have all of the candidates for trustees nominating petitions. It was clearly the last one that was signed. So that would have to be invalid under any analysis. But it's up to you guys to choose how to rule on that.
So what's next?
Well, does everybody agree then that that's an invalid signature?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what we have. 1, 2. You have 8 invalid signatures out of 39 signatures, or 38, I can't remember. So clearly it's less than 32. before you make a ruling, I do feel constrained to make some comments about some of the argument that was made. Again, this is only as a question of law. A lot of times, we don't agree with the law. A lot of times, we feel like if we apply the law the way it's written, it's inflexible, it's rigid, it leads to unfair or unreasonable results. This election code law has been, it shouldn't come as a big surprise. There's a lot of litigation over this. There's many different things that can invalidate a signature or a sheet nominating petition. But with respect to address, registration, and those issues, those rules are what they call mandatory rules. So the courts say some things we can be flexible on and do, as Mr. Tiarina was asking, sort of go in favor. If you could go either way, you go in favor of having the person on the ballot. But the rules with respect to signers on the petitions have to be registered voters, and they have to be registered at the address that they list on the petition. That is mandatory, it's inflexible, and following the law would require you to invalidate those signatures. You don't have to agree with the law. You're being asked to decide, are those signatures, were they at the correct address, were they registered at the time they signed? And if the answer is no, then the law says they're invalid. But again, you're the board, so you get to decide.
Council, if you stated this earlier, forgive me, but the very makeup of this board and this board meeting here today is following what the election law states.
That's correct. That's correct. Just for everybody's, we didn't draw names out of a hat for Trustee Carter. It's the mayor, the board is made up of 3 people, the mayor, the clerk, and the longest serving trustee. So Trustee Carter gets the designation as the longest serving trustee. So that's how she became a member.
And Council, if I may follow up on that, then what you're advising us as the village council that we must really, whether we like the law or not, we must apply the law today. And then either party, if they didn't like the decision, could appeal this to the circuit court. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are court remedies after this ruling today.
So this isn't the end necessarily for...
It's not necessarily the end.
Thank you.
So the next and ultimate question, it's on the findings and order. It says, now, therefore, it is ordered that, number 1, the nominating petition is, for the reasons here and above set forth, legally either sufficient or insufficient. We all agree that if we strike those signatures, it's insufficient for lack of the correct number of signatures?
Yes.
So the finding would be insufficient. And then paragraph 2, Nicholas Tiarina, the respondent candidate, shall or shall not appear on the ballot. I think it needs to be shall not, but I'll let you rule.
I would say shall not, but I would market it that you can always have a write-in.
Good
Always
point.
do a write-in.
I need to hear from the other 2 members, sorry.
Shall not.
Mayor, you agree with that? Okay. So that paragraph 2, Nicholas Tiarina, the respondent candidate, shall not appear on the ballot as a candidate for election to the Board of Trustees of the Village of Peoria Heights during the consolidated election to be held April 6, 2021. Next.
Council, if I may just ask a informational question for myself. I don't want to get, if I'm getting too far off the mark, correct me, but if someone were not, if a decision was made to keep someone from off the ballot, they have the right to run as a write-in, is that?
Yeah.
Do you know how that works?
You know, with the electronic ballots, I'm not sure how you do write-ins. I know that you can still do write-ins. There's all kinds of rules. You got to get the name spelling correct and things like that. So be careful with the last name, Tiarina. If you're going to do write-in, you want to make sure. Well, no. I mean, if your name is Smith, people aren't going to misspell it unless they leave the E off or something. But yes, there is a way to do that. I just can't answer that question now that we're on the electronic voting machines.
But a person doesn't necessarily hit a dead end if they're...
No, that's true.
Thank you.
I will tell you, the first election challenge I had was Aaron Schock when he ran for the school board. And if everybody has a memory, he ran for the school board. The school board president challenged his nominating petitions. He was removed from the ballot because people used hash marks under the word Peoria in the state Illinois. And he lodged a write-in candidacy and beat the incumbent president of the school board by a lot. By a lot. So it does happen.
Thank you.
I think that concludes the proceedings. Motion to adjourn, I guess, would be the next.
So do we want a motion or to accept the findings, or we've already done that by consensus?
I think we've done that by consensus, but it's probably appropriate to do a motion to approve the findings as stated, which is that Mr. Tiarina will not appear on the ballot.
So I would ask for a motion to approve the findings. Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Village clerk? Aye. Mayor Phelan?
Aye. Okay, council?
I want to thank everyone for appearing today and, for being patient and courteous and cooperative. Thank you.
Are we ready to adjourn?
We are.
I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Sign?
Yep.